Discovery is where complex B2B deals are won, lost, or quietly sentenced to no decision. In this episode, Kevin Lawson and Sean O'Shaughnessey explain how weak discovery creates bad forecasts, false urgency, unnecessary discounting, and proposals built on assumptions instead of business value. You'll learn how to uncover the real buying process, identify hidden implementation risks, and build an ROI case strong enough to withstand late-stage scrutiny. Before you send another quote or advance another opportunity, listen to this conversation and make sure you have earned the right to lead the deal.
Discovery is where deals are won or lost. Most salespeople treat discovery as the opening act before the real selling actually begins. That's backwards. Discovery is where the seller earns the right to lead, where the buyer decides whether this person is useful, and where the deal either becomes real or quietly starts to die.
This episode should make the case that weak discovery creates weak pipeline. Bad discovery leads to fake urgency, bad forecast, shallow prospects, discounting, and no decision. Great discovery creates clarity, priority, and momentum.
Discovery is not just the stage of the sales process. Discovery is the foundation of the very deal. We have friends in our world of advisors and sales consultants that actually say that you will win or lose your deal, your entire deal, depending on how well you do discovery. And if you're starting to have problems, then the issue is probably because you didn't do enough information gathering in discovery. So with that being said, we need to really dig in and let's do it well. We're going to actually do a couple episodes on discovery because we think it's so important that we're going to talk about discovery, the very beginning of the sales process. So things that you should be able to do in discovery should be, you should be able to completely understand what's going on, who's making the decision, where are the power brokers within the company, how are they actually making a decision to buy something, and why. And that's really the biggest issue. The more you can find out about the second thing, not just who has buying authority and who has the ability to describe the need, but why is it a need? Why did the CRM not work for them? Why did they need a new CNC machine? Why do they need all these things? What is the business reason for it? Because the reality is, if you do great discovery, then you start to understand where the ROI is in the entire project. And at the end of the sales process, when you're asking for the order, you actually will have data that says, but I thought you said you needed that new CNC because you weren't being able to manufacture your processes or your machines or your whatever to the stringent enough controls to actually make it work. Kevin, what do you think?
I'm a firm believer that discovery is the bedrock for why a deal should proceed, and it's a permission grantor for us as salespeople to ask for the next meeting. You've heard me say on other podcasts, sell the problem you solve, not the product you have. And too often, I see a lot of people skip discovery or skip 3/4 of discovery, and they're just rushing to the point of trying to get a proposal out, a quote out. And this happens a lot, especially with new products. So think features on a roadmap, new products, somebody's calling something a disruption, and they're racing to get people educated so that they can get to a quote faster. But nobody ever pauses and says, what are you working on? Why? When somebody, I think about technology, right? If you're buying an enterprise level LLM solution, how are you making the decision between Claude or Gemini or Copilot, or why are you making this decision? It's not, hey, ours can run faster or you can get our credits cheaper or something. Like, if I'm just doing quotations, salespeople aren't needed. Let that sink in for a minute. If you're just doing a volume of quoting with no discovery, your job is in jeopardy. Discovery is what separates us from a product sheet. Sellers need to understand why the product is the best solution. Why are we helping this person solve a problem? Because if we can't figure out what they actually need to fix, we don't know what they'll need to fix next, which is selling through a relationship. So your discussion about CNC machines, Sean, I love that you brought up a product that produces specialized parts, because in a factory assembly or a factory floor, you've only got a certain amount of concrete available. So it's got to be optimized. So when you buy the new machine, does it now put into play a old roof joist? So is that machine still the best solution, or does your entire shop floor need to be reconfigured? Let's think about the problems we also have to solve before we just give a quote. It is not movable. If it's not movable on a factory floor, you have to consider that as part of your proposal. You may have to get additional permitting, contractors, somebody else to get you ready, because if you're just trying to put in a new system or a new tool, there's other considerations you must make. Notice how I didn't say should. The could, would, should will get you in a whole lot of trouble if you skip all those in discovery. You've got to do can, will, and am, like I am, we are, work in the discovery process to understand what's next. What's the urgency? What happens if we don't solve this year? Does the plant stop, or does the plant just go look for additional warehouse space?
This is so important, because when you start thinking about what you're going to have to do eventually in the conversation, you're going to meet with the economic buyer or buyers. You're going to meet with the influencers of the economic buyer. Eventually, you are going to have to do a proposal. And somebody along the way is going to go, that's too expensive. I need a discount. Now, sometimes your product is too expensive. Sometimes you overquoted it. Sometimes it's too high. That's going to happen. However, it really doesn't matter if you have an ROI that is amazingly good. And in discovery, you are finding out all these data points, or you should be finding out all of these data points about what's going on if you don't buy. What is causing this to happen? Are you going to lose a customer? Are you going to lose 10 customers? Maybe you can't ship. In the case of this CNC made up scenario that I started with, maybe you can't ship a certain type of product, or maybe you really can't hold the tolerances that you need to satisfy that quote, to satisfy that customer. Maybe your existing machinery can't do it. And as Kevin said, there's all kinds of other issues that you need to discover in the buying process, because you get all the way down, you're forecasting this deal. This deal is going to close in Q3. Don't worry about it, boss. I got this one nailed. This is going to happen in Q3. And then you meet with the plant manager, and the plant manager looks at the floor plan and he goes, I don't have enough space for that. I think we're going to have to move that wall. Or did anybody figure out the water requirements for that manufacturing process? Like, where are we going to get the water out? We can get the water there pretty easily, but draining it away, how are we going to do that? Or did we do an environmental impact study on the coolant that we're going to have to use for this brand new machine? Because we don't buy that coolant today. And how are we going to get rid of it? Where's it going to go? Do we have to register it with the EPA? Those are the questions that you need to lead your customer through during discovery. So if you sell CNCs, then you know about those issues. You've heard of them if you sold them before. Because remember, you have sold your product more than your customer has bought your product. More about selling your product than they know about buying your product. So in discovery, you can start to flesh these things out. You can start to guide your customer through the process. And by being a guide in the sales process, you actually control the sales process, and you set up all your competition to not even exist, because you're in charge, you're driving the boat, and everybody else is just trying to figure out what's going on, because you're in charge and you know exactly how you're going to get this done.
And it's really a fun exercise, Sean, to think about what must be done, what must be focused on in the discovery phase. Because you and I know, and our listening audience knows, that you don't do the quote in the discovery phase. You may have a budgetary range, but you don't do a specific down to the penny, tariffs included quote in the discovery phase. In the show notes today, I'm going to include a document with a lot of different qualification methodologies that focuses on the discovery phase. What should be included in the discovery phase versus what's a primary versus an ancillary activity. The discovery phase needs to be robust to find out critical information because it informs the urgency, the next steps, the who, the what, the when, the wheres. It informs and helps you build your case of why a deal should not go to our worst enemy, no decision. This kind of work is both strategic and tactical. And this is some of my favorite work because when we do this work well, we build a more robust, a more reliable. Hey, CFOs out there, if you're listening right now, I'm trying to get salespeople to put together better forecasts for you. These kinds of activities and actions will help the integrity of the business. They will inform and create information loops with marketing so you can do it more effectively. You can attract more right customers. Now, Sean opened us up by talking about this being the foundation, and he nailed it. Discovery is the foundation of any good sales process because anything you do poorly in discovery is going to show up in the proposal and timeline and close and negotiation stages. Just think about a cake for a minute. When you bake a cake, if you don't break those eggs, your cake's not going to taste very good.
So this is a subject actually we talk a lot about on the B2B Sales Lab. It's something that Kevin and I started several months ago. Actually, it's been a year now that we started this effort where we allow salespeople and sales leaders to get together, to talk over problems, to discuss things. On a regular basis, we have areas on the lab where we can put out questions and people can ask questions and people can put out their comments. But we also have what we call office hours. And office hours is like this. It's just Kevin and I, and we get on the video, and all of a sudden people start joining and we say, who has a problem they want to discuss? Sometimes it's the first person that joins. Sometimes it's the fourth, but doesn't really matter. But somebody has a problem. And 9 times out of 10, that problem is discovery. They aren't doing the things that they need to do on discovery. The other time out of 10 is usually, how do I find new customers? How do I prospect? So that's the biggest issues. But we hear this all the time where I tried to understand what was going on. I didn't ask enough questions. And we always go back to some fairly basic things. Because you know your ideal client profile, your ICP, you can identify the issues that ideal client profile will have, that customer, that prospect will have, because you called on a very similar type of company just last week, just last year. And you are able now to learn from those experiences and truly guide them through the process. So if you like what you hear on our Two Tall Guys Talking Sales, the podcast that comes out every Tuesday at 4:30, you're going to love the conversations that we can have on the B2B Sales Lab. So the links are in the show notes, but it's really easy. B2B-sales-lab.com. Check it out. If it's not for you, that's perfectly fine, but what does it hurt to check it out? It's free to check out. So I'd like to finish off this discovery phase to say we're not done talking about it because we feel that discovery is incredibly important. Like we've said over and over again, it's the foundation of the rest of the selling process. So please come back next week, Tuesday at 4:30, and you're going to hear more information about discovery. We're going to have more conversations about it. We're hopefully going to make you better discoverers.
What a sharp and practical episode, one that exposes why so many promising opportunities begin to unravel long before the proposal is delivered. I especially appreciated the discussion about uncovering hidden implementation requirements during discovery, because the product itself may represent only one part of the buyer's decision. Floor space, permits, utilities, environmental requirements, internal resources, and other operational dependencies can change the cost, timeline, and feasibility of an entire project. A salesperson who identifies those issues early becomes a guide through the buying process, while the salesperson who ignores them is often surprised when the deal stalls. Your significant action from this episode is to conduct a discovery gap review on one important opportunity by documenting the business problem, measurable impact, cost of inaction, decision process, stakeholders, and unresolved risks. Do that today before daily demands push it aside, because every unanswered question is a potential objection, delay, forecast miss, or no decision outcome waiting to surface. If you need help with sales, sales management, or growing your company, reach out to Sean or Kevin using the contact information provided in the show notes. You can also join the B2B Sales Lab, where salespeople and sales leaders help one another answer difficult questions, find useful resources, and improve their ability to make quota. The link is waiting for you in the show notes. Subscribe to Two Tall Guys Talking Sales on your favorite podcast player, and join us again when the next episode arrives Tuesday afternoon at 4:30 Eastern. Happy selling!